It's a quiet evening in Hopewell, New Jersey, March 1st, 1932. Inside the Lindbergh home, everything seems peaceful. Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, and his wife Anne are spending a normal night with their 20-month-old son, Charles Jr. Little do they know, their lives are about to change forever. Cut to Anne gently placing Charles Jr. in his crib. She closes the door softly, and the house settles into nighttime stillness. Like any other night, Anne puts her baby to sleep, not knowing someone is watching from the shadows. Hours later, as the family sleeps, someone slips into the nursery. We hear quiet footsteps and a creaking window as a shadowy figure lifts Charles Jr. from the crib and disappears into the night. The next morning, panic fills the Lindbergh home. Anne checks the crib. It's empty. Their baby is gone. They search the house desperately, calling for him, hoping it's just a misunderstanding. We see Anne frantically running through the house and Charles checking outside. Then, on the windowsill of the nursery, a chilling discovery. A ransom note demanding $50,000. Someone had taken their baby, and now the family was faced with an impossible choice. Pay the ransom or risk never seeing their son again. Close-up of the ransom note as Charles and Anne read it in disbelief. The Lindbergh family immediately calls the police, and soon, the largest manhunt in U.S. history begins. Every lead is followed, but the kidnappers remain in the shadows. Ransom negotiations start, and the Lindberghs are hopeful. Show detectives reading through the note and sending intermediaries to talk with the kidnappers. They follow every instruction, desperate to bring their son home safely. But days turn into weeks, and still no word. All they have is silence and a deepening fear. Then, on May 12th, their worst fear is realized. Charles Jr.'s body is discovered just 5 miles from their home in a shallow grave in the woods. Flash to police discovering the small body, with Lindbergh standing in shock. It's a horrifying moment. The child who had been the center of their world is gone, his life taken by a cruel hand. The nation mourns with the family, but now the search for justice begins. The investigation goes into overdrive, and soon the spotlight falls on a man named Bruno Hauptmann, a German immigrant living in New York. He's found with some of the ransom money in his possession. Show Hauptmann being arrested and led away in handcuffs, surrounded by flashing cameras. Was Hauptmann the mastermind behind the kidnapping? Investigators were convinced they had their man, but many still wondered if all the pieces of the puzzle fit. The trial begins, and it quickly becomes the trial of the century. Newspapers cover every moment, and the public is glued to the case. Charles Lindbergh even takes the stand to testify. Show the courtroom with Lindbergh on the witness stand, staring across at Hauptmann. Hauptmann, however, claims he's innocent. He insists he had nothing to do with the kidnapping or the murder of Charles Jr. But the evidence against him keeps piling up, and the public demands justice. Flash between courtroom scenes, witness testimony, headlines, and images of a determined Lindbergh family. The jury reaches a verdict, guilty of kidnapping and murder. Hauptmann is sentenced to death. 2 years later, in 1936, Bruno Hauptmann is executed. But even after his death, questions linger. Some believe he was innocent. Others are sure justice was served. Scene fades to black, with a final shot of Lindbergh walking away from the courtroom. The Lindbergh kidnapping left a deep scar on America, forever changing how we see safety, trust, and justice. It was more than a crime. It was a story that captured the world's attention and still haunts us to this day.